The massive Imperial ship emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, its golden hull reflecting the distant sunlight. It was larger than anything humans had built, nearly the size of a small moon. But Admiral Marcus didn't feel impressed as he watched it approach through the bridge windows of the HMS Defender. Instead, he felt concerned. "They're hailing us again, sir," said Lieutenant Tom from his communication station. "The Imperial representative sounds impatient." Marcus straightened his blue uniform and nodded. "Put them through." The holographic display flickered to life, showing Lord Grey of the Galactic Empire. Like all Imperials, he had pale blue skin and silver eyes that seemed to glow. His elaborate golden uniform sparkled with too many medals to count. "Admiral Marcus," Lord Grey said, his tone carrying that same hint of superiority they'd heard since first contact 3 days ago. "The Imperial Council grows tired of these delays. Either Earth joins the Empire peacefully, or we will be forced to demonstrate our displeasure." Marcus kept his face neutral, though he noticed his bridge crew tense at the threat. They had all read the reports. The Empire controlled 10,000 star systems, had a fleet of millions, and had never lost a war in their 5,000-year history. "Lord Grey," Marcus replied calmly, "Earth appreciates the Empire's generous offer. But as I explained, we need time to consult with all our nations. We've only had faster-than-light travel for 30 years. This is a big step for us." Lord Grey's silver eyes narrowed. "Admiral, perhaps you don't understand. The Empire doesn't ask twice. We've studied your planet's history. You're divided, primitive, wasteful. You spent centuries killing each other over resources and land. The Empire will bring peace, order, and prosperity to Earth. Whether you choose to accept it gracefully is up to you." Marcus smiled slightly, an expression that confused Lord Grey. Most species cowered when the Empire threatened them, but this human seemed almost amused. "You've studied our history, you say?" Marcus asked. "All of it. Of course. Your constant wars, your nuclear weapons, your environmental damage. The Empire will correct these flaws." Marcus leaned forward. "Then I have a proposal. Allow me to meet with your military command. There are some things about humanity they should understand before any decisions are made." "Our military command," Lord Grey scoffed. "They don't meet with primitive species." "Tell them this," Marcus said, his voice turning serious. "Tell them that humanity is the only known species to split the atom before reaching space. Tell them we developed nuclear weapons before we had satellites. Tell them that in just one of our wars, we killed over 60 million of our own people. Tell them that we went from first flight to landing on our moon in just 66 years. Lord Grey's confident expression faltered slightly. "What are you suggesting, Admiral?" "I'm suggesting that your military leaders might want to hear what I have to say. Because you're right. We are a species that fought countless wars. And that means we know things about warfare that your empire, for all its power, has never had to learn." The bridge fell silent. Even the usual beeping of instruments seemed muted as Lord Grey stared at Marcus, trying to understand the human's unexpected response. Finally, Lord Grey spoke. "I will convey your request. But know this, Admiral Marcus. No one refuses the Empire. No one." As the hologram faded, Lieutenant Tom turned to Marcus. "Sir, do you think they'll listen?" Marcus looked out at the massive Imperial ship, remembering all the classified files he had prepared to show them. The footage of the world wars, the nuclear tests, the guerrilla warfare tactics, the rapid advancement of human technology. "They won't listen, Tom. Their empire has never lost a war. They've never faced a species that developed through conflict like we did. They don't understand what that means." He turned to face his crew. "But we're going to try to warn them anyway. Because if they force this war, they're going to learn why humanity spent so much time and effort looking for peaceful solutions." The crew nodded, understanding in their eyes. They all knew Earth's history, knew what humans were capable of when pushed into a corner. They could only hope the Empire would be wise enough to listen to the warning. But deep down, they all knew it would take more than words to make the Empire understand why they should run. The Imperial War Room was a sight that would have impressed most species. Its walls displayed holographic maps of 10,000 worlds, and around the massive black table sat the 12 highest-ranking military commanders of the Empire. But Admiral Marcus kept his face neutral as he stood before them. General Stone, the Empire's supreme commander, looked down at Marcus from his elevated seat. His blue skin had turned slightly gray with age, and his silver eyes held centuries of conquest. "You have 15 minutes, human," Stone said. "Lord Grey says you have something important to show us. Make it quick." Marcus nodded and pulled out a small device. "Computer, play historical file A1." The room's holographic displays changed. Suddenly, the Imperial commanders were surrounded by footage from World War II. Tanks rolling across Europe, cities burning, planes dropping bombs, soldiers fighting house to house. "This was just one of our wars," Marcus explained. "It involved most countries on Earth. Over 60 million dead in 6 years. Primitive warfare," one commander scoffed. "We've seen this in many developing species." Marcus clicked to the next file. "This is different. Computer, play nuclear test alpha." The display showed the first atomic bomb test. The mushroom cloud rose high into the sky, and the Imperial commanders sat up straighter in their chairs. "You developed nuclear weapons without spaceflight?" General Stone asked, his tone changing slightly. "Yes," Marcus said. "We're the only known species to do so. We split the atom while still earthbound. We created weapons that could destroy our world before we could leave it." He showed more footage. Vietnam War guerrilla tactics, modern tank battles, special forces operations, urban warfare. With each display, the Imperial commanders grew more quiet. "Computer, play technological development timeline," Marcus ordered. A new display showed human advancement, from the first flight at Kitty Hawk to the moon landing, from the first computer to artificial intelligence, from the first nuclear bomb to fusion power. "Notice the dates," Marcus said. "We went from horse-drawn carriages to space flight in less than a century, from basic flight to stealth bombers in 50 years, from simple bombs to city killers in 3 decades. General Stone leaned forward. "Why are you showing us this?" "Because you need to understand what you're dealing with," Marcus replied. "Your empire has never lost a war because you've never fought a species like us. We developed through conflict. We advanced through warfare. Every major technology we have came from trying to fight better, move faster, hit harder." He walked around the table, making eye contact with each commander. "You think we're primitive because we fought each other. But that's exactly what makes us dangerous. We know war in ways your empire never had to learn. We understand brutal, desperate combat in our bones." "Are you threatening us, human?" another commander asked. Marcus shook his head. "No, I'm warning you. Earth doesn't want war. We've seen too much of it. That's why I'm here, to show you why you should be very careful about forcing us into another one." He clicked one final time. The display showed modern Earth's defenses, orbital platforms, stealth ships, drone swarms, weapons the Empire's scans hadn't detected. "We've had 30 years of peace to focus purely on defensive technology," Marcus said. 30 years to take everything we learned from millennia of warfare and apply it to space combat. We've built things your empire never thought of because you never had to think that way." General Stone stood up. "The Empire has millions of ships, countless soldiers, technologies you can't imagine. And we have nothing to lose," Marcus replied calmly. "If you force this war, we will fight. We will adapt. We will take everything we know about warfare and use it in ways that will shock you. And we will not stop." He looked at each commander again. "So this is your warning. Learn from history. Read about what happens when someone pushes humans into a corner. And then ask yourself one question. Do you really want to be the first empire to find out how good we are at winning wars? The room fell silent. For the first time in their careers, the Imperial commanders felt something they'd never experienced before. Doubt. 1 month after Admiral Marcus's warning, the Empire made its decision. A fleet of 500 warships dropped out of hyperspace near the Mars colony. Their golden hulls formed a wall of metal that stretched for thousands of kilometers. Colonel James stood at the command center of Mars Defense Station Alpha, watching the Imperial ships approach. The station's crew worked quietly at their stations, their faces lit by the red glow of Battle Station's alert. "They're broadcasting, sir," Lieutenant Smith reported from communications. "The Imperial commander wants to speak with you." James nodded. "Put them on screen." The main display lit up, showing Commander Reed of the Imperial fleet. Like all his kind, he had the characteristic blue skin and silver eyes, but his expression held nothing but contempt. "This is your only warning," Reed announced. "Mars colony will surrender to Imperial control. You have 1 hour to lower your defenses and prepare for occupation. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force." James looked at the tactical display. The Imperial ships were arranging themselves in the Empire's standard attack formation, the same formation they'd used for thousands of years of successful conquests. "Commander Reed," James replied, "I see Admiral Marcus's warning didn't reach you, or perhaps you didn't believe it. Your primitive defenses cannot stand against the Imperial fleet. We have studied your capabilities. Your colony has no significant military presence." James smiled slightly. "You study our visible capabilities. Tell me, Commander, did you ever wonder why Mars colony's power consumption is 3 times higher than it should be for a civilian settlement?" For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Reed's face. "Or why we have so many communications arrays, or why our mining operations go so deep," James continued. He pressed a button on his console. "Let me show you what you missed." Across the Martian surface, hidden doors began to open. In the deep mining tunnels, platforms rose. From beneath the red sand, weapons emerged. Not the simple defenses the Empire had detected, but rows of advanced rail guns, plasma arrays, and missile batteries that had been hidden for decades. "Impossible," Reed whispered. "Our scans were exactly what we wanted you to see," James finished for him. "You see, Commander, when humans build defenses, we don't just plan for the enemies we know about. We plan for the ones we haven't met yet." The tactical display lit up as hundreds of small ships emerged from hidden hangars. They were unlike anything the Empire had seen. Sleek, dark vessels designed for hit-and-run warfare, built using lessons learned from centuries of guerrilla combat. "Last chance, Commander," James said. "Take your fleet and leave. Tell your Empire that we warned you fairly." Reed's face hardened. "The Empire does not retreat. All ships, open fire." The Imperial fleet launched their attack, expecting an easy victory. Their energy weapons flared across space and hit nothing. The Mars defense grid had already shifted, using randomized patterns developed from Earth's history of anti-artillery warfare. "They never learn," James sighed. He opened a channel to all defense stations. "All units, execute Defense Plan Thunder." The response was devastating. Rail guns fired projectiles at speeds the Empire had never encountered in combat. Missile swarms emerged from hidden silos, their paths unpredictable. The smaller human ships darted between the Imperial vessels, striking from blind spots their rigid formation created. In the first 10 minutes, 50 Imperial ships were destroyed. In the next 10, they lost 100 more. Their perfect formation broke apart as they faced tactics they'd never encountered in their thousands of years of warfare. "Commander Reed," James broadcast on an open channel, "you should have listened. You should have run." The Imperial fleet began to retreat, their golden ships now scared and broken. They fled back into hyperspace, leaving behind the wreckage of nearly half their force. As the last Imperial ship disappeared, Lieutenant Smith turned to James. "Sir, do you think they'll come back?" James watched the tactical display as their defense grid reset itself, hiding weapons and ships back beneath the Martian surface. "Yes," he said quietly, "but next time they'll come with everything they have. And then they'll learn why Admiral Marcus tried so hard to warn them." He looked at the debris field that had once been proud Imperial warships, because now they've done the one thing they should have feared most. They've given humanity a reason to show them how we really fight. 2 weeks after the Mars colony battle, the Empire launched its full response. 3,000 warships arrived at the edges of human space. This time, they'd brought their most powerful weapons and their best commanders. But Commander Wilson was ready. From his hidden base in the asteroid belt, he watched the Imperial fleet split into attack groups, just as he had predicted they would. "Status report," he called out to his crew aboard the stealth ship Shadow. "5 Imperial groups detected, sir," Lieutenant Rogers replied. "They're following standard Imperial doctrine, splitting up to cover more ground, just like the history books said they always do." Wilson nodded. The Empire had used the same tactics for 5,000 years. Why change what had always worked? But that predictability was exactly what humanity had planned for. "Send the signal," Wilson ordered. "Operation Ghost begins now." Across the asteroid belt, hundreds of seemingly dead rocks suddenly came alive. They weren't asteroids at all, but camouflaged human ships and weapon platforms. The Empire had dismissed the belt as a navigational hazard. They never imagined humans would turn it into a massive trap. "First target identified," Rogers reported. "Imperial Group 3, moving past Sector 7. Wilson smiled. "Launch the miners." What looked like normal mining ships appeared from hidden docks. The Empire ignored them at first. Their scans showed no weapons. But these ships carried something the Empire had never considered a weapon: industrial mining lasers, modified to cut through warship hulls. The Imperial ships didn't even raise their shields. Why waste energy defending against mining equipment? By the time they realized their mistake, 30 of their ships had been cut apart. "Imperial Group 2 is responding," Rogers called out. "They're moving to assist." "Perfect," Wilson said. "Deploy the haulers." This time, cargo haulers emerged from the asteroids. The Empire's scans showed them loaded with ore, normal readings for a mining sector. But the ore was shaped into precise chunks, and the haulers had been modified with mass accelerators. When the haulers opened their cargo bays, they fired their loads at nearly light speed. The dense metal chunks tore through Imperial ships like paper. No energy shields could stop simple rocks moving that fast. "Imperial Command is ordering all groups to converge," Rogers reported with a grin. "They're falling right into it." Wilson opened a channel to all human forces. "Phase 2 begins. All ghost ships. Execute Operation Scatter." Hundreds of small human ships appeared from their hiding places. But instead of forming battle lines like the Empire expected, they broke apart in every direction. Each ship followed its own random path, using maneuvers developed from centuries of dogfight tactics. The Imperial fleet tried to respond, but their rigid formation training worked against them. Their ships were designed for line battles and overwhelming force, not chasing individual targets. Every time they turned to face one threat, 3 more hit them from different angles. "Sir," Rogers called out, "Imperial Command ship is broadcasting. They're demanding we fight properly." Wilson laughed. The Empire still didn't understand. "Send them our reply." On the Imperial Command ship, the Admiral watched in frustration as another explosion lit up space. His display showed chaos. Human ships appearing and disappearing. Attacks coming from impossible angles. Simple mining equipment turned into deadly weapons. Then a message appeared on his screen. "You should have run when you had the chance. Now we're teaching you how humans really fight." "This isn't warfare," the Admiral shouted. "They hide like cowards. They use tricks. They don't follow any proper military doctrine." "Sir," His aide reported nervously. We've lost contact with Groups 3 and 4. Group 2 is reporting massive damage. Group 5 is scattered across 3 sectors trying to chase down their attackers. Wilson watched from the shadow as the mighty Imperial fleet fell into complete disarray. They had lost a quarter of their ships to enemies they couldn't even find to fight properly. Send the final message, he ordered. Across every Imperial ship, the same words appeared. Lesson 1 in human warfare. Never fight fair when you can fight smart. Would you like to continue your education, or would you like to run? The Imperial fleet's response came a few minutes later. Their remaining ships turned and flowed into hyperspace, leaving behind the wreckage of their defeat and a very clear answer to Wilson's question. Captain Lisa walked through the converted car factory in Detroit, watching as workers assembled the newest weapons in humanity's arsenal. Just 3 months ago, this plant had been making electric vehicles. Now it produced space fighters. Production report, Mr. Taylor, she called to the factory manager. Taylor, still wearing his old auto worker's uniform, consulted his tablet. We're ahead of schedule, Captain. Turns out making spaceships isn't so different from making cars. Just need to think bigger. Lisa nodded, watching as a line of workers installed modified car engines into fighter frames. The Empire didn't know it yet, but they were about to face ships powered by ordinary Earth technology, redesigned to be faster and more agile than anything they had. How are the other factories doing? She asked. Steel mills are working round the clock making armor plates. Toy drone makers are building combat drones now. Even the video game companies are helping. Their simulation software is perfect for training pilots. A loud cheer erupted from the testing area. Lisa walked over to see what had happened. A group of engineers were celebrating around a damaged fighter hull. What's the good news? She asked. One engineer turned to her, grinning. We just tested the new armor, Captain. It's made from recycled car bodies layered with kitchen ceramics, stronger than Imperial hull plates, but weighs half as much, and we can make it from junkyards. That was humanity's secret weapon, the ability to turn anything into a resource. While the Empire relied on their traditional supply chains and manufacturing methods, humans were converting everything they could find into war materials. Lisa's communicator beeped. Captain, you're needed in the strategy room. The message read. In the factory's converted conference room, she found Admiral Marcus on the main screen, speaking to commanders worldwide. The Empire lost another fleet yesterday, Marcus announced. They tried to attack our Luna base. Instead, they ran into our new garbage defense system. Everyone smiled. The Empire had no idea that Earth's space junk had been deliberately arranged into deadly clouds of debris, turning trash into a weapon. But they're learning, Marcus continued. Their ships are starting to copy our tactics. They're trying to adapt their strategies. Unfortunately for them, we're adapting faster. He showed footage of the latest space battles. Imperial ships now tried to move more randomly, to use hit-and-run attacks like human vessels. But their crews had 5,000 years of rigid training to overcome. They couldn't match humanity's natural flexibility. Production report, Marcus called out. Each commander gave their update. South America's coffee plantations are growing special plants for oxygen recycling in our ships. Australian mines are producing new alloys they invented last week. African solar farms are testing space-based power transmission. When it was Lisa's turn, she reported on Detroit's progress. As she listed their innovations, the recycled armor, the modified engines, the repurposed factory equipment, she saw the pride in Marcus's eyes. The Empire doesn't understand what they're facing, Marcus said when the reports finished. They think industry means massive shipyards and special factories. They don't realize that humans can turn anything into a weapon, any factory into a military plant, any technology into an advantage. He showed their latest intelligence. The Empire was struggling to replace their losses, their rigid production systems unable to keep up with the demand for new ships and repairs. They've lost more ships in 3 months fighting us than they lost in the last 1,000 years combined, Marcus explained. And every ship we destroy teaches us how to fight them better. Every battle shows us new ways to beat their technology. Lisa looked around the converted car factory. Workers who had been making family sedans 3 months ago were now building space fighters. Engineers who used to design entertainment systems were creating weapons. Everyone was adapting, learning, improving. Latest reports show the Empire is calling in ships from their other borders. Marcus continued. They're getting desperate. But that's their mistake. They're doing what they've always done, just bigger. While Wiki smiled, we're doing things no one has ever done before. As if to prove his point, another cheer rose from the testing area. Lisa knew without looking. The engineers had just invented something new, found another way to turn everyday technology into a weapon of war. That was humanity's true power. Not just the ability to fight, but the ability to turn anything and everything into a means of fighting. And the Empire was learning this lesson the hard way. The Imperial War Council chamber was no longer the proud room it had been 6 months ago. The golden walls were dim, and the holograms showing their 10,000 worlds flickered with bad news from every front. General Stone, once proud and confident, now looked aged and tired. His blue skin had turned almost gray from stress, and his silver eyes had lost their glow. Around the black table, the other 11 commanders looked just as beaten. Another fleet lost, Stone announced to the silent room. This time they didn't even fight us. The humans just let our ships fly into a cloud of debris they had positioned in orbit around Jupiter. 300 ships destroyed by space junk. How many ships have we lost total? One commander asked quietly. Stone pressed a button, showing the numbers everyone feared to see. 5,000 ships destroyed. Another 3,000 damaged beyond repair. 700,000 crew members dead or missing. The room fell silent again. In 6 months of fighting humans, they had lost more ships than in 5,000 years of running the Empire. And what have we achieved? Stone continued. Not one human world captured. Not one human fleet destroyed. They don't even fight us in proper battles. They just... He waved his hand in frustration. Appear, strike, and vanish. The outer colonies are getting rebellious, another commander reported. They see us losing ships and ask why we started this war. Some are even copying human tactics. That was the Empire's worst nightmare. Their perfect order was breaking down. Worlds that had obeyed without question for thousands of years were now asking dangerous questions. Show the new human weapons, Stone ordered. The display change, showing recent battles. Imperial ships being torn apart by modified mining lasers. Civilian cargo ships turning into deadly weapon platforms. Pleasure yachts transformed into stealth attackers. They're not even building proper warships anymore, Stone said. They're just turning everything they have into weapons. And it's working better than our best military technology. A junior officer entered the room nervously, carrying a data pad. Urgent message from the frontier, sir. The humans. They've started attacking. Everyone looked up in shock. Until now, humans had only fought defensively. Show us, Stone ordered. The display changed to show a human raid on an Imperial supply base. Small, fast ships appeared from nowhere, their hulls made from common Earth metals, but somehow invisible to Imperial sensors. They struck with terrible precision, using weapons that looked like they had been made in ordinary factories. 17 supply bases hit in the last week, the officer reported. The humans are using converted civilian ships. Our defense systems don't recognize them as warships until it's too late. Stone watched the footage with a mix of horror and grudging admiration. The humans weren't just defending anymore. They were showing the Empire how good they were at attacking. Play the message they left, the officer said quietly. Admiral Marcus's face appeared on the screen. He looked calm, almost sympathetic. This is your final warning, Marcus said. We didn't want this war. We tried to warn you. But you forced us to show you why humans spent so much time and effort looking for peaceful solutions. Now you know what we can do. We don't want to find out how good we are at conquest. Leave. Run, while you still can. The message ended. The War Council room was silent except for the hum of failing systems. We can't beat them, Stone finally said. Not like this. Every time we lose a ship, they learn more about how to destroy the next one. Every time we try a new tactic, they adapt faster than we can. They're not just fighting us. They're getting better at it every day. He stood up, looking at each commander in turn. 5,000 years of Imperial history. Never lost a war. Never retreated. Never surrendered. He took a deep breath. Until now. You're suggesting we run? One commander asked in disbelief. Stone nodded. The humans gave us a chance to run at the start. They're giving us another chance now. And if we're smart, if we want to save what's left of the Empire, we'll take it. The vote that followed was the first unanimous decision in Imperial history. As the Council voted to retreat, Stone looked one last time at the footage of human ships in action. We should have listened, he whispered. We should have run. 1 year after the Empire's retreat, the Great Hall of the United Earth Government buzzed with activity. Diplomats from 100 human worlds mixed with representatives from the reformed Imperial Council. The Empire's traditional golden uniforms were gone, replaced by simpler blue robes that matched their skin. Admiral Marcus stood at the main podium, looking out over the gathered crowd. Beside him stood Lord Grey, the same diplomat who had once threatened Earth with destruction. Now he wore the simple robes of the new Imperial Diplomatic Corps. 1 year ago, Marcus began, we faced the prospect of a war that neither side truly wanted. Today we meet as equals to ensure such mistakes never happen again. The crowd quieted. Everyone knew the cost of that nearly devastating war. The Empire had lost 8,000 ships and nearly 1 million personnel before finally retreating. Even now, some of their outer colonies were still adopting aspects of human culture and questioning old Imperial ways. The Empire has changed. Lord Grey spoke next, his once arrogant voice now carrying notes of wisdom learned the hard way. For 5,000 years, we believed military power meant having the largest fleets, the most advanced weapons, the strictest discipline. Humanity taught us differently. On the display screens around the hall, images appeared showing the new cooperation between humans and the Empire. Imperial ships now trained alongside converted Earth vessels, learning the art of flexible tactics. Human engineers worked with Imperial technicians, showing them how to adapt civilian technology for multiple uses. We're here today to establish the Earth protocols, Marcus continued. New guidelines for peaceful first contact between spacefaring civilizations. The first rule is simple. Judge no species by their apparent level of technology. Judge them by their potential. Lord Grey nodded. The Empire once dismissed humans as primitive because they spent centuries fighting each other. We didn't understand that this gave them strengths we never developed. They learned to adapt, to improvise, to turn anything into an advantage. In the audience, Captain Lisa sat next to an Imperial ship designer. They were discussing plans for a new class of vessel that would combine Imperial power with human flexibility. Around them, other humans and Imperials shared ideas freely, each learning from the other's strengths. The second rule, Marcus announced, is to respect diversity in development. Some species advance through cooperation, others through competition. Some build mighty fleets, others learn to turn mining tools into weapons. All paths lead to the stars, and all deserve respect. Commander Wilson, now head of the Joint Human Imperial Defense Force, stood up. The Empire taught us too, he said. They showed us that unity can be strength, that order has its place alongside chaos. Together, we're stronger than either of us alone. The screens showed new images, Imperial shipyards using human-style adaptive manufacturing, human colonies learning from Imperial organization methods, two cultures that had nearly destroyed each other now growing together. The final rule, Lord Grey said, is to always offer peace first, second, and third. Because you never know if you're facing a species that spent its entire history learning how to win wars. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Even the Imperials had learned to joke about their near-fatal mistake. But most importantly, Marcus concluded, we established these protocols to remind future generations of a simple truth. True strength isn't about having the biggest ships or the most advanced weapons. It's about being able to change, to adapt, to learn from others, even those you once considered enemies. He turned to Lord Grey, extending his hand in the human gesture of friendship. The Imperial diplomat took it without hesitation, another sign of how much his people had changed. 1 year ago, I warned the Empire to run, Marcus said to the gathered crowd. Today, I'm glad they didn't, because sometimes running from a fight leads to something better than victory. It leads to understanding. As the assembled delegates stood to applaud, human and Imperial alike, the screen showed one final image, a new ship class under construction. Its hull combined Imperial power with human innovation. Its weapons merged Imperial technology with human creativity. On its side, in both human and Imperial script, was its name. Remember the warning. It would serve as a reminder to all future civilizations. Judge not what a species is, but what they might become. Sometimes, the most dangerous species are the ones who warn you to run.